Welcome to the 700 Club. Hezbollah is ramping up its attacks on Israel's northern border. Just this morning, the terror group fired at least 50 rockets at a city in the Golan Heights.
Meanwhile, the Biden administration is still waiting for Hamas to get on board with a ceasefire deal in Gaza. CBN's Chuck Holton brings us the latest.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken left the Middle East without the ceasefire deal the Biden administration hoped to achieve. But he's still pushing for a deal to free the hostages and halt the fighting soon.
Our message is simple, it's clear, and it's urgent. We need to get the ceasefire and hostage agreement over the finish line, and we need to do it now.
While Israel has agreed to a ceasefire proposal, Blinken said Hamas still needs to get on board.
Israel has now accepted that proposal. I heard that directly from Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday, and we hope and expect that Hamas will do the same. That's the critical next step.
As the diplomats focus on Gaza, the conflict on the northern border with Iranian-backed Hezbollah is intensifying. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for a massive rocket barrage in the Golan Heights Wednesday morning. The IDF reported approximately 50 unguided Katyusha rockets launched toward Israel. While the Iron Dome intercepted several, others struck Katzirin, causing significant damage and wounding at least one person. This after Israeli fighter jets struck Hezbollah weapons depots deep in Lebanon's eastern Bekaa Valley, with massive explosions lighting up the night sky. Monday, CBN News traveled to northern Israel to gauge the readiness of the IDF forces arrayed along the border. In the city of Kiryat Shimona, we got a taste of the reason those troops are there.
I mean, there's a fine line between brave and stupid. Here we go again. Here we go again. Get down, get down. Ouch. Ow. Let's see. No? Probably another drone.
The exchange highlights the conflict's expanding scope, even as Hamas continues to reject Gaza truce proposals. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to emphasize Israel's commitment to victory.
Eliminate Hamas and achieve victory. We are approaching it step by step. With all our strength, we are dismantling the Hamas regime and eliminating their military capability.
The Prime Minister also stressed the importance of securing the release of hostages.
At the same time, we are making an effort to return the hostages, under conditions that will allow the maximum number of hostages to be released in the first stage of the deal.
Tuesday, Netanyahu expressed uncertainty that the hostage deal will happen. He also emphasized that the IDF would not relinquish control of the Philadelphia corridor, a strategic area along the Gaza-Egypt border. In northern Israel, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Well, just imagine living under that, where at any moment in time a siren could go off and you had to run to shelter and run for your very life, for your very safety, the safety of your children. It's intolerable, but that's the situation in Israel. Hezbollah's firing rockets this morning. All this talk of ceasefire, all of this talk of diplomacy, and let's wait on diplomacy to work. Just imagine if those sirens were going off in your neighborhood. What would you do? How would you respond? In that, realize that is what Israel should be doing. They should be responding and should be responding in force. When your opponent says they want to repeat October 7 again and again and again until you no longer exist, how in the world can you ever negotiate with that? In other news, Barack and Michelle Obama praised Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention last night. But the vice president and her running mate were not in the building. They were campaigning elsewhere. Wendy Griffith has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Wendy?
That's right, Gordon. As you just mentioned, in Chicago, the Obamas headlined night 2 of the convention, but the candidates weren't in attendance. Meanwhile, outside Convention Hall, pro-Palestinian protests continue. Washington correspondent Caitlin Burke has details.
As prominent Democrats urged America to back Kamala Harris Tuesday night, the nominee herself was 90 miles away campaigning in the battleground state of Wisconsin.
We are so honored to be your nominees. This is a people-powered campaign, and together we will chart a new way forward.
As Harris stumped for votes, second gentleman Doug Emhoff paid tribute to his wife on the DNC's primetime stage.
Wherever she's needed, however she's needed, Kamala rises to the occasion. And she did it for me and our family. And now that the country needs her, she's showing you what we already know. She's ready to lead.
In back-to-back speeches, Michelle and Barack Obama delivering a strong endorsement of Harris and a cutting indictment against Donald Trump.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
His same old con, doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and solutions that will actually make people's lives better.
This was a tag team approach with Michelle Obama and Barack Obama going after Donald Trump, and they went after him strong. And I think that was an extremely effective approach at the convention. I think the key question now going forward is how much are Michelle and Barack Obama going to be on the campaign trail?
Meanwhile, on the Chicago streets, police arresting dozens of protesters after pro-Palestinian demonstrations turned violent outside the Israeli consulate.
Ain't no power like the power of the people, get the power of the people on top.
Earlier in the day, protesters also showing up at an event organized by an Orthodox Jewish group. Organizers of Jewish events at the DNC have reportedly avoided publishing the locations of their events to try and avoid these kinds of disruptions. Meanwhile, another group speaking out this week, Democrats for Life. They issued a statement after Planned Parenthood announced it's offering free abortions to DNC attendees. The statement reads, quote, "We continue to urge our fellow Democrats to stop doing business with Planned Parenthood and other pro-abortion groups and return to the party's true roots of standing up and fight for the vulnerable and for the little guy." Former President Donald Trump spent Tuesday campaigning in Michigan, the event focusing on law and order and making America safe again. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Caitlin. A popular drug could be a game changer for people at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Excess weight increases the risk of diabetes, but a new study finds people who take diabetes medications for obesity can reduce their chance of developing the disease by 94%. Drug maker Eli Lilly says the 3-year study shows the popular drugs Zepbound and Mounjaro can nearly eliminate the progression for people most at risk. It also found those taking the highest dose lost on average 23% of their body weight.
So this speaks to not only the benefits of this medication in terms of weight loss, but preventing a diagnosis that 1 in 10 Americans live with in this country.
The FDA says the drugs are still in short supply, but makers say they have increased production to meet the demand. Well, the world is watching and waiting as NASA works to get 2 stranded astronauts home. Although they're in a tight spot, the pair are Christians who are relying on their faith to help see them through. CBN Washington correspondent Michelle London has more.
NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore and test pilot Sonny Williams should have returned from their mission weeks ago. But engine failure has prevented that. As fellow Christians pray for their safety, Wilmore, longtime church elder, and Williams both have the important treasure of faith with them in outer space. Facing the unknown, both NASA and its stranded crew are checking and double-checking all options so they can get home. But the crew is currently stranded.
So we are finding stuff and we're correcting it and making changes, making updates with our control team.
One rescue possibility, the Boeing Starliner is on hold due to thruster failures and helium leaks. NASA Chief Astronaut Joe Acaba says the team continues to search for answers, but
I do want to put this into perspective. If Butch and Sonny do not come home on Starliner and they are kept aboard the station, they will have about 8 months on orbit.
Which means no likely return until next year. Acaba says there's just not enough insight or data to make a clear decision. Still, he's confident Wilmore and Williams' experience on board the spaceship will keep them safe. Apart from the human logic, in the midst of this uncertainty, both have an invaluable asset.
Faith in the life of an astronaut is eminently important. They are dealing and working with things that the rest of us cannot necessarily wrap our heads around.
Pastor Wenzel Pawlowski leads St. Paul the Apostle Catholic Church in Texas. He's had at least 36 parishioners who were once astronauts, even gifting one with blessings from the altar to serve as a reminder that God is always near.
The Blessed Sacrament is inside that Luna, which Mike Good took with him into outer space. He brought it back so it could be used here every day of the week.
At St. Paul, Pawlowski and his parishioners know the importance of praying over every space mission.
We are connected in an absolutely fascinating way with what goes on in the rest of the universe.
As engineers on the ground scramble to understand the problems, Pawlowski is calling on Christians everywhere to pray for God to intervene. And as for the families of Williams and Wilmore, neither are concerned and expect a later return. Wilmore's wife, Deanna, recently said her husband is content under the circumstances, knowing the Lord is in control. Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
And Gordon, I can't imagine what they're going through, but I'm praying for their peace and that they get home soon.
Well, let's pray for their safe return. Let's pray for the engineers to come up with a solution so that they can return and return safely, and underline safely. It's a shame that the machine that got them to that station isn't up to the task to bring them home. We need to find a substitute. We need to find a solution. So pray for wisdom for the engineers on that team that this happened and happened quickly. Ashley?
Yes, definitely keeping them in prayer.